Well, I grew up in the Bay Area and I was in suburbia, grew up in suburbia like a lot of people. And I had a really normal family life. And my parents got divorced when I was about 14 years old. And so at that point, all of a sudden, it's kind of like your family's in disarray. It's people go this way and they go that way, and they're kind of involved in their trying to fix their own tragedies, sort of in their lives, and they're distracted from things, and so there's a lack of presence. And so I did really pretty good on my own. My mom was working and around, but she was mostly working and taking care of my little sister. So I ended up getting married to a rock and roll singer, and he used to open for all these famous people, and we were like really in love. But as you can imagine, the atmosphere was not the perfect atmosphere for a marriage. And so I tried everything I could, and I had to leave. And I thought that would be the best thing. I thought it was the only thing I could do for myself. And it broke my heart, and I was vulnerable. I was a dance fitness instructor. That was really what I was doing every day, all the time. It was a business, and I got in a car accident. So I couldn't dance anymore. And so here was my livelihood. I didn't have a college education, but this was my livelihood. I couldn't dance. I lost my husband, and I left the house with him. And so I was on my own. And I stayed with a friend, a male friend, and we were just friends. And he was a good guy, but he had a roommate. And this roommate one day gave me these tapes to listen to. And they were dressed up all in a package in this basket, like a little gift or something. And they said things like confidence. And so they were like subliminal tapes you would listen to, kind of new age stuff, I thought. And so I wish I had never listened to those tapes. I did not know what was on them. I thought they were for something good. And as soon as I had listened to them, that roommate told the guy that was a friend of mine that I had to move out, like immediately, like homeless, no reason. And my friend said he didn't understand it either. And I don't always tell that part of the story, or I didn't for a long time, but that is really key because usually people are groomed. People are prepared. They set you up for something. And this was not a small setup. This was not from just some criminal trying to give me a tape. This was something else. And so I didn't know it. I just was lost. What am I going to do? Well, I had gone out one night when I was divorced and went to where my husband used to sing, and one of the places, and a girl had asked me to sing. She came up and said, "Aren't you so-and-so's wife? Didn't you sing with him?" I said, "Yes, but, And so she made me her little project and said, "Oh, you can sing. I want you on stage." And so they had jam nights. And so it was suburbia. All our friends hung out there. It was really, at that time, it was a safe environment. I mean, there was no harm that we could see or that I saw. All the musicians knew each other, so I went and sang with her. So after that happened to me, with the having to move out suddenly, I ended up having to look for a place. So where am I? I'm singing in the clubs. My family's in disarray. I'm in a vulnerable state of life. But I'm just a regular girl from a regular town, who's worked all my life. And so somebody says, "Hey, there's this guy who is renting a room, and he is, basically he was not a security guard, he was worked to keep a band, one of the bands, that he would go with them, and he was, I guess, like a security person for them." And so everybody said they loved him, and he was fine. And so I went there, and I think it was the first night that I was drugged and raped and filmed. I didn't have a memory of it, but I knew someone had touched me. I knew that I had to go, and I was traumatized. Plus, I didn't really take everything in. I was probably still on whatever they gave me. You have trauma, you have whatever's left in your system. And this isn't from somebody saying, hey, let's get high. This is from somebody slipping something. You could be not drinking alcohol, you could just be eating food. This is somebody just drugging whatever you're taking in. So I have to explain that, because sometimes when you say drugged, people go, oh, they gave you something to get high, and it was something else, which they do to people, but that wasn't the circumstance in this situation. No matter what you were doing, you would get drugged. So I had to leave there, and I'm instantly homeless. I worked all my life, I'm in trauma, so I go back because I don't want to go to my family, and I don't even know what's happening yet. And I go back to the club where my friends are, and someone comes along and says, hey, you want to stay here? Even females, you want to stay here if you're not okay till you figure something out. And I would go, and they would do the same thing over and over and over. And I don't know how long it was before I figured out I was drugged, how long it took for me to figure out I was filmed. Not too long, because people would tell me about it. So evidently these drugs, it's like date rape drugs, but they were making them themselves, I was told, in some cases. It was a huge ring. And it was like a game to them, and they were moving you around. By the time I figured out really what happened, because it started out kind of slowly, by the time I figured it out, I was devastated. And when you think of how many times you were raped, how many times you were drugged, and you're trying to just go find a place to live every time, and you're just running in circles. So I learned how to bartend to try and make money, because it wouldn't be in my mind to do anything else. I mean, I didn't have the education to go, just start some job that would be enough to take care of me. Since I was in the clubs, I learned how to bartend. And what I meant by doing anything else was they wouldn't have had to drug me if I was willing to sell myself. And so that was just not in me. It was not even a thought or doable. So slavery is about control, and it's about part of their rush is taking someone against their will. Even for some girls on the streets, they know they're trafficked. That is part of the rush for the customer, or I shouldn't even say customer, because they're slaves and it's rape. So I evidently, it got bigger and bigger, and to a point where when I finally did, they'd say, if you go get help, you'll be arrested if you call the police. I did, and I was, for no reason. Not right there. I did, and then I was right afterwards. I went to a women's organization that was specifically for someone that was hurt like I was. And I went 3 times. They refused to see me. They said I was 5 minutes late the first time. The second time, I had a male friend take me, and he was arguing with them, like, why aren't you talking to her? Why aren't you seeing her? The third time was way far into it. I called back one more time just to see, is this happening? I went to doctors. Everywhere I went, I was blocked. I had a doctor offer me, if you say this, we'll give you this. Like, I'll give you all the Valium you want and SSI if you will say that you have this, and this isn't happening. It was crazy. And so how do you go from a normal life and tell people something that the regular people in the world aren't going to understand? You can't understand it. And you've got to go try to ask for help when you're traumatized, when they're putting things in your system. At one point, it was every night. I even got my own apartment because I'd been hit by a car. I had enough money to get my own apartment. I thought, maybe if I don't have a roommate, this won't happen to me. The landlord was letting people in. They took me to an apartment where the landlord was, they knew who I was, and he became part of it, and he was facilitating it. So it was probably the worst part was when I was alone. anyway, by the end, people were saying, I'm sorry, Jill, because basically they said, when they're done with you, you'll die. They're gonna kill her. That's what they told a friend of mine. And so my mind is going, what? And I think for some reason, God gave me some sense of something solid that went, no. I don't know who you people are. And I kept going. I kept fighting, saying no. My mind would not accept what I heard. As far as, no, I'm not going to die. Who the hell are you? Excuse me. Who are you? And and I'm saying that to pretty big people, but and some not so much. But anyway, it was 10 years before I got out. I just ran in circles till I was pretty much dying. And I just really just cried out to God and said, I've been trying to fix this myself, and I'm not going to make it anymore. So I hope you're real, and I hope you're good, because I've got nothing left. And I got on a phone, payphone, and I had just enough for one phone call. And I remember having to go find my mother, who's passed away now, at work, to ask her money for the payphone. And she thought, they told her, oh, she's hanging around the wrong crowd. They lied to my mother. It was dirty all the way up and all the way down. And so I was just trying to live at that point. And I found a place, not easily. And I called one place, and I had prayed before I called, and the phone kept disconnecting. I was like, please give me a safe place. I can't trust anybody. And so the phone kept disconnecting, and I picked it up again, and I found a place to go, and I kept getting disconnected, and my money would come back. And I was like, what's going on? And then I thought, wait a minute, I prayed about this. Maybe this isn't the place to go. So I called the next person on the list, and the guy said, where are you? We're not that far from you. I went there, I got there, and they immediately sat me down, and I didn't tell them everything at first. I just said I was a rape victim, because I learned not to scare people. So I just needed to get in the door. So he said, what do you want? And all of a sudden I just cried and said, in 10 years, no one's ever asked me that. And I said, do you know any Christians? And he laughed, and he said, why? Not laughed, but he was like, what? And I said, this is evil, and I promised God that if he saved me, I would help him, and I need to know a lot of stuff right now. I need to learn things fast. And so he said, well, let's make sure you're okay first. So they've set me on the path from there. And it wasn't the last time I was hurt. They came back after I was an advocate, after I was on a coalition, after I was living on my own. They came back in 2006-ish, and I went through the battle all over again. But this time I was stronger. This time I got louder. This time, and it was hell all over again. I still ran into all the blocks, and I said no. So here I am.